So we just wanted to share a disclaimer regarding the interview and hope that everyone takes this, considering this in mind as well.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to episode 21 of our series, Per Ardua Ad Astra, and we are joined by a special guest today, Dr. Anmol Kaur from the 2020 batch of Harding, who has recently been selected as a Khorana Scholar 2025. Many congratulations to her on this remarkable achievement. We are truly honored to have her with us today. Before we begin the conversation, I request everyone to please turn on their cameras. So, the congratulations.
Thank you so much, Nidhi, Ashi, and the entire team of Harding Chronicles for giving me this opportunity to share my experience. I have given Nidhi some trouble, but I'm really grateful that we have finally sorted out the details.
So, starting with the interview, Dee, can you share like a brief timeline of the application process? Like when did you applied, when the results came, and when the your visitors planned? Like a brief timeline.
So the timeline for Khorana is mostly around the same time each year. The applications usually open around early to mid-September, and for me, the deadline was 7th October. Subsequently, following that, the results came out in late January. For me, that was 29th of January, 2025. And then following that, you have to find a mentor who's willing to host you. And after that, you can plan the details according to your wish. So I came to the States on 11th of June, 2025. And my internship began at 23rd June, 2025.
So you can plan the visit any 3 months of the year. Like it is
No,
not
it's a summer
specific that
internship. It's a summer internship. But for some students, I've seen they have trouble accommodating it during their summer break. So there are some Khorana scholars who are coming in the later half of the year. But usually, for most of them, it has been primarily during summer. And for me, I remember the time period that they gave us that our starting date should be was May 19th to July 31. That is, we had to begin our internships during, like the first day had to be during that time frame.
The next question is, how did you come across this program and what made you interested in applying for it?
I came across this program on LinkedIn and I knew a couple of people who had applied for it. They had gotten selected and they had a great time in the States. I wanted to apply in my third year, and due to logistical difficulties, I was not able to apply it. And then I applied in my final year, which for MBBS is the third professional part 2, because the internship year is regarded as the final year, because you might have seen in the applications for Khorana that they say that first and final year students are not eligible. So that is for MBBS students, the final year definitely means the internship year. So students in the third professional part 2 are absolutely eligible to apply for it.
So the evaluation process for application is quite detailed. Like what steps did you take to make your application stand out? And could you also share some advice on how to build a strong and competitive profile for applying for the program?
This is a very nuanced question. For the application process, I would say that focus on presenting a clear narrative of your academic journey, your research exposure, and why do you want to pursue this program. This would be highly variable and highly personalized for everybody, and no two people would be having the same journey. So this is how you can create a more convincing platform for yourself. How can you make yourself appear as lucrative to the program, to the people who are viewing the applications? I would suggest to highlight your specific skills and the experiences that have shaped you into the person that is currently applying in that moment. Both your readiness and your willingness to learn. And I would really recommend building a consistent record of research interest. It's not that one day you decide and you're like, okay, now let's do this. You have to show them that you were, even if it's not something major, but you were consistently there, you were doing something. There's just something to show that you were continuously involved in research. And it's not just an abrupt flash in the pan. Okay, now let's do this. So that is something that I would suggest. But again, everybody has a very, very variable and very, very different experience with this. Nobody knows how the applications are selected. Nobody knows what the Khorana people are looking for in your application. So I can't say for certainty, like, do this and your application will get selected. I can't.
Like they have in the criteria for like application selection, they have mentioned things like you need a technical background and other
Yeah.
internship courses or lab work. Like, would you recommend some of these for our student that they can do across the years so that they make a good CV for the application?
For a lot of my peers, I had seen that they had done internships at ISC, ISER, or there's the CSIR program along those lines. Then I would also, but again, for me, I had not done any of those. I, on a technicality basis, I had little laboratory research exposure. So I don't know how exactly, again, that fits into the equation. I did not have an external internship in my application. But a lot of my peers, a lot of them do have that, especially IISc. For me, I had included my elective, which I had done in the Department of Biochemistry. That is something that you get to do in your final year, the third professional part two. And I had built on from there. I did have some some record of what I had done there, so I could play along with that. But again, it depends what you do in your electives, and no two people would be having the same journey again. So that is something that I have to. This is again not my forte to really recommend what can be done, but these are just, again, do something, just play along. Don't be restricted to your core curriculum. As long as you show that you've done things beyond your core curriculum and you were involved in things, I think it helps.
Uh, like I had this doubt कि all these जो भी हमारे experiences हैं, so do we make a proper CV, or is there like we need to, because you said that small experiences we can also tell them so that they know our journey. So like
Hmm.
what format do they ask for? Like, do they ask a CV format or some other formats for your experience or your skills?
They do not ask for a CV format. So just give me a second. I'll pull up.
Hmm.
Yeah. So they would ask you for your basic details, your name,
Hmm.
whether you've previously been awarded the BOS or Khorana scholarship,
Hmm.
etc., etc. You should have a passport. A lot of my peers did not have a passport, and then they had to apply for it. So it's preferable that you do have a passport. Other than that, for MBBS students, it's recommended that you have a cumulative percentage aggregate more than 65%. That is kind of a requirement. Then there's a research statement that you have to provide. And in the research statement, you need to provide a brief description of your research interest and possible areas that you might want to explore during the Khorana internship. Following that, you have to provide the statement of purpose, where you're asked. So basically, in the Khorana application, there were 3 essays that we had to write. Other than that, there was just the basic details, and they asked for transcripts and stuff. But other than that, nothing more. The statement of purpose, which is your career goals, short term and long term, and what do you hope to gain from this internship, and summary of past training or research experience. So they do not ask for a CV per se. Right?
Do they request the letter of recommendations from the past internships or externships?
So there are 2 letters of recommendation that are required. One is from a clinical perspective. Like for me, I provided from a clinical perspective, and one I provided from a laboratory experience perspective. So if you have done something from an external school or an externship, it is very preferable that you provide that letter of recommendation. They do not ask for it, but it is preferable that you provide that letter of recommendation rather than from an institutional letter of recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
But also, I would say, like, take this with a pinch of salt. Generic external letter is not as good as a highly personalized institutional letter.
Hmm.
So you have to make a pick there.
Uh, we
As in, I would rather get a personalized letter from somebody at my school rather than getting a generic letter from somebody from a bigger school.
Okay.
So my next question was along these lines only. Like, do you have any tips on approaching the professors or mentors for recommendation? As you said that getting a personalized letter is very important. So what in like what people like if in our college, like who should what professors we should approach, or we should, or in outside as well, like do
Yeah.
you have?
Okay.
Hmm.
It depends who your mentors have been. That is a great question,
Hmm.
and I think one of the most difficult questions that might be there. Who have seen you personally, who have seen your journey, who have seen your growth. So that is
Hmm.
something that is that you might have to figure out. So I would recommend approaching professors who have closely observed your academic performance and research interest, and who are willing to provide a letter of recommendation. Not all professors would be willing to provide a letter of recommendation. Give them enough time, tell them why you want to do this internship, but do not be pestering. That might annoy them. If you send a follow-up text or follow-up email every 3 days, they will get annoyed. But you have to give them like a window period of 2 weeks at least,
Hmm.
that this is a program, I'm interested. Uh, I have, like, they might have worked with you or you might have been under their mentorship. So then they could provide a letter that can highlight how you have evolved as a student, how you have evolved as a researcher. And that would give you a well written, informed letter of recommendation. And definitely choose recommenders who know you well, not necessarily the most senior faculty. Be super respectful of their time and keep the communication clear and professional with them, and give them that buffer period. Nobody will give you a letter of recommendation in 2 days, 3 days. That's not happening.
So we
With
should
all
start.
these letters, I'm sorry to interrupt you. With all these letters of recommendation, uh, the no objection certificate, just be super careful to take that buffer period and give all the people involved some time to process those things.
Um,
And for the I'm sorry to interject again. This just popped in my head. You need the letter of recommendation on a letterhead and not just like a letter, a paragraph, and then they sign. No, that's not what's required. It has to be on the letterhead of the professor.
so we should start approaching them like before few months as well.
I did not do that, but
Mhm.
I do not remember the exact date when the applications for my cohort started, but very vaguely, I think it was around 7th to 8th of September. And I once I started filling out the application, that's when I approached the people whom I wanted to write my letters of recommendation. So it's not necessary that you have to start approaching them 2, 3 months ago. That's not required, but just get started on it. That's something I'd recommend.
Okay, the
Identity
application. Sorry.
Identify the people from whom you want your letters of recommendation. Just that.
Mhm.
If I were in your place, I would do that. That's the most important thing.
Uh, so the application requires submission of a research idea. How did you conceptualize and structure your proposal, or or the research idea that they require us to submit? And if possible, could you give us an overview of your own research idea?
I conceptualized my proposal by combining. I was interested in neurology and cardiology, and I had some experience in both of them. So my research idea was at the integration of those, and I would say put forth an idea that is feasible and in a research direction that is aligned with what you have done and whatever lab you're wanting to approach later. It's aligned with their directions as well. Begin by identifying gaps in literature, narrowing down to a focused question, and then structuring the proposal with clear objectives, methodology, and expected outcomes. Very basic stuff, but again, a clear structure is always helpful. My own proposal was centered around neuroinflammatory and neurodegenerative disorders. And I had kind of given it a translational perspective, and then I went on from there.
So for designing a research idea, did we take help from our like professors or like seniors, or it just that we have to, or it is like that we have to come from like singly we have to come up with
You
it?
don't necessarily have to provide them with a research proposal. What you have to provide them is just an indication of your thinking prowess and that you're thinking along those lines. It asks for your research interests and areas that you might want to explore. So again, they are not expecting you to provide like a proposal that you can just go on in the lab and give to their ethics committee, and they'd be like, okay, welcome, you can have all our equipment and you can just go on from there. They're just trying to see if you are in, again, that is my interpretation of the things, if you are able to think and if you are able to create hypotheses and generate research questions. It's just that nobody's expecting you. I do not think that professors would be willing to put in the time to create a research proposal that they're not going to pursue. So I do not know what to say exactly on this. I personally did not approach a professor to help me curate that part of my application.
Also, the like you mentioned about writing a statement of purpose for the program. So, like, would you share
That's a
any
requirement for the
tips?
program. I didn't, yeah, you have to write
Yeah,
that.
yes. So, we have to write the statement of purpose. So, in that case, can you share some tips or advices to design a good statement of purpose?
A statement of purpose is a very personalized thing. I cannot tell you what you want to do with your life. I cannot tell you
Hmm.
what has to be done with your life. So that is how you want to go about it. But don't go, that what my advice would be, don't go around beating the bush.
Hmm.
Keep it very precise, very to the point, and very concise, that this is what I have done, probably this is what I want to do and why I want to do that. They would not care about what your personal background has been, or but if you have had any impactful points in your trajectory that have defined who you are as an individual, that would be helpful. That would definitely create a more nuanced conversation. And I would include that. But other than that, I would recommend keeping it concise, because they do not provide you with, there is a word limit for the statement of purpose. I think it's around 1,000 words. So you do not get to write a lot. So it's important that you make it as, you have to fit in a lot of stuff in a very short essay. So I would just say you have to decide for yourself what have been the most significant points in your trajectory and why you want to include them here.
So also as we get as someone will get selected, they had to come up with like with whom in the US with professor and which lab they want to work with. So so what strategy did you follow in selecting both the host institute and the US professors you wish to collaborate with?
I shortlisted institutions and labs by reviewing faculty profiles, their recent publications, what the lab had been doing, if there had been a transition in their focus, and their ongoing projects. So my aim was to identify mentors whose research aligned with my interest and who would be willing to take trainees and who were working at the interface of what I wanted to do. I did not want to go into a lab and be, okay, I don't know what I'm doing here. So because you're coming into a foreign country and you want to work on things, because this is a very great opportunity and you want to make the most of it. So it's important that you recognize the labs that you actually do want to work in. I also factored in the scope of learning opportunities available in the lab, and that strategy and amalgamation of such sort of things helped me identify who I wanted to work with and where I wanted to work.
Actually, I had this doubt. Like when you fill your application for like these, uh, so in that case, if you selected the professors or the lab, like is there a limit that you will select 10 people or you'll select 3 people or what?
They'll ask you for 5 professors whose contact details you have to provide and whom you're interested in working with. But it is not necessary that you definitely have to work with them. You do get a chance to alter your preferences later as you move forward, because you get the results like 6 months down the line, and it is very possible that your interests might have shifted from. But again, those 5 professors need to be like whom you definitely want to work with. You get 5 professors to answer your questions.
Okay, so like if anybody has any doubt, they can ask. So the like what all should be there in the personalized letter of recommendation, since most professors ask students to write their own LORs. One of the doubt is this thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Okay, for me, like my professor sat down with me and then wrote the letters of recommendation. So I did not have to face this. What would be a personalized letter of recommendation? I mean, we all know what generic letters of recommendation are. It's like she's a good student. That's all. Like that's what's coming from the letter of recommendation. That's very generic, but probably highlighting your strengths and if you have worked on something with them and if there was an impactful moment where they saw your growth, I think that would make it personalized. I don't know. I think I have to come up with a better answer for this. We can rotate back to this. I do not currently have a more suitable answer for this. But again, I would say just do not randomly go up to any professor and ask for a letter of recommendation. If the professor knows you, they'd be willing to write you a personalized letter of recommendation. Even if it's not personalized, it has to be a good letter of recommendation. The difference between a generic and a good letter of recommendation is very apparent. I do not know how to exactly explain this, but go to a professor who is kind enough to write you a letter of recommendation, who has known you since, like for me, one of my letters of recommendation came from the Department of Biochemistry. So they had seen me as a first year student and then they had seen me as a final year student. And then they knew like, okay, she isn't the same person like she was in first year. So for them to see that, okay, this person has grown over the course of 4 years, I think that's important. So identifying the right people to write your letters of recommendation is the most important thing here, rather than what can make it personalized, what can make it good. If you have a good mentor, they would be willing to write you good letters.
I mean, I think the most important point here is that ask someone who you know, who you think knows you as well, and who has seen your journey. Does anyone else in the audience have any questions for thee?
Hi Didi, I wanted to ask that can someone who's not in our college write a letter of recommendation if we know that?
Yeah, of course. If they're willing to write you a good letter of recommendation, that supersedes a letter of
And
recommendation from the college, in my opinion.
and also, what all research experience did you get from this program?
I have gained a lot of experience. I think this has been a great journey for me. I've gotten to work with a lot of stuff. I am getting to work with cell cultures. I'm getting to do Western blots, BCA analysis, a lot of good stuff. Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with the world of proteomics, but I've gotten to delve into that. So yeah, it's great stuff. It's fun.
Okay, Didi, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So what would you say holds like the most importance or the like highest priority in the complete all the documents you've submitted? Yeah.
I cannot comment on that. I am not on the reviewing committee for the applications. I do not know how my application got selected. But I think it's just 3 essays. They're not interviewing you. They're not seeing you in person. So it's just 3 essays which would define your application. So you cannot exactly go cherry picking here. You have to make all of them stand out. Yeah. Because if it was that you move on to an interview phase, I would say that the interview holds the most importance. It's just the application. Okay, something that I should mention from my part. A lot of my peers already had people whom they knew, and then they went into their labs. So they kind of had letters of invitation from those labs. I have seen a lot of people, and this has kind of worked for them in their favor. For Ananya, what you were asking. So a lot of people say that for them, already having a prior acceptance has worked in their favor. But not necessarily people who it's not like if you have an invitation, you would get selected. But it is that if you have an application, it might mostly go in your favor, not always.
Thank you, Dee, for answering our questions and giving your precious time.